And here's a project that I've been involved over the last year, Ceos 2030. It's a global, large-scale project, with 70 researchers from 23 countries involved. And we're working on compiling evidence that we need to reach the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So we're focusing on 2.3, which is zero hunger by 2030. And more narrowly, we're focusing on smallholders. So smallholders, it's a significant group in developing countries, a lot of food. Some estimates go with 80% of the food is produced by smallholders. One of the characteristics is that they're using most of what they produce, they're using in their own household. So, and it's a group that has often been neglected by, extension services and aid and development efforts. So we have this project funded by the Gates Foundation. It's run by Cornell University and the International Institute for Sustainable Development and IFPRI in DC. So it's a really nice project. And so they have an advisory board and they gave us 8 topics. Okay, so it's not really, we started with nothing. So they gave us 8 topics to work on, 8 interventions. And this is actually all of us in June in Rome. So I think here, that's me, okay, and that's my colleague Jessica Page right here. So it's really great. So they all flew us in from all over the world in this room, and we are working on these 8 intervention questions that they gave us. So my team, so about 6 to 8 or something, maybe 6 to 8, maybe 8 to 10 more. So 6 to 10 maybe. Content experts, so researchers, and every team had 2 information specialists or librarians that were just helping with this strategy. So I was working on, my colleague from the National Agricultural Library, on water scarce solutions. And that really was our topic. So it was really given us very broad. Farming, they wanted to know about farm income, productivity, underwater scarcity. And so we were actually tasked to refine that question. So we were given a topic, and I think it's pretty typical of how this process looks like. You have an idea for a topic, or this is a topic, something you're interested in. How do you come up with an actually question that is reviewable and searchable? And so we spent a lot of time thinking what we should be doing. And we all developed protocols that are publicly available that describes what we're doing. And this protocol has, can you hide this? Okay, it has a bit of a description, and they're all standardized in a way, record information. And then we use the PICO framework to help us refine the question. And all of us, some have used the SPICE framework, but most have used the PICO framework. So we talk about small-scale food producers under water stress or in water scarcity conditions. Our interventions, we were restrict ourselves to on-farm interventions. So it has to be something that's actually working on a smallholder farmer's field. And it has to be tested for water scarcity, or it has to be designed for water scarcity. I mean, a lot of things you can think of that will have an effect on water, I guess, in the widest sense on a field, but we're really looking for intervention that were designed to address water scarcity. We just spelled out what comparison we wanted, and then the outcomes that was given to us, actually yield, productivity, and income. You just had to kind of fill this out because productivity is a pretty broad concept, income as well. So so and this PICO question, it carried us through the whole process. So we used our criteria to define. We used this to actually define our question, to come up with our question. In this case, it was what spectrum of farmer interventions to elevate water scarcity has been tested to increase small-scale farmers' income, yields, and productivity. And then we have criteria that any study has to meet. It needs to meet all of them to be included. it only takes one to exclude them. So that's how it worked. And then we sat down and discussed the scope of the different databases, what are the databases that are most likely to have this content. So just like you did on this worksheet. And then there was another question about the gray literature. That's really a topic. Gray literature, we refer to anything that's not really published in a regular way. So it's not in a journal or in a book, not in a conference proceeding. Anything that's, that includes actually dissertations, but it's more like reports. A lot of NGOs working in this space, and there were a lot of reports. And this is research. It's high quality research. It's just not very well published for whatever reason. They go with a different way of communicating their results. So if you want to surface all these things, so you have to think where this research might live, and so you can just make a list of these things, and you have to actually go there and search them. So that would be, I know if you struggle with the gray literature searches, and that's tricky because you don't have as much options. So in terms of building your searches, so you can only do on many of these pages or websites, you only have very limited. You can do keyword searches, you can do Booleans, you can do nesting, you can do phrase searching. So a lot of limitations. So you have to try a lot of different things. So it comes in handy if you have a pretty long list of keywords that you can try. Okay, and then we document everything. So. And at the very end, so we have the master search published. So if you have a topic, it might be worth trying whether there is something like a systematic review or a scoping review in that space, because if they're done correctly, they should have in the appendix or in the text of that article, it should have a description of the actual search that they did with all the search terms. And they should have some sort of master search in there that you can use. So here was ours for the it's 8:30. So I'm moving over to Scopus. Can I move this maybe here? Since I'm on campus, I just go to Scopus directly, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you want to sign in. If you sign in, for some reason, no, it recognized me, okay. So if you sign in, that gives you access to, and this is in all, it may be named differently, they call it, so here it's under my Scopus, where you can have all your, you can save your searches, you can set alerts, you can save folders and lists. It may be called folders, in Scopus it's called list. So you want to make sure, and it records your search history, so you want to make sure first thing you sign in, okay? And then I just copied the search. This is just the first concept. First thing you see is actually a limitation of how long your search can be. So you can have only you see it cut it off here. So that's a problem if you have longer search terms. You can go to the advanced search and it will, I actually have to copy the whole thing again. Okay, so that can hold a lot more terms. With the advanced search, in this case, you actually have to use the right search command in there. So I just add this in here, and then you have to make sure. One of the problems is if you copy and paste it often, the page breaks are often not correct. So you have to fix this a little bit. Okay, so we have some keyword terms in here, and we worked a lot of time thinking about these smallholder folders. So this is just to capture the smallholder population. So those are all the terms that we discovered are used when when authors make references to smallholders, so a lot of different things. And then we went to kind of some we put in like family-run farm. We put in actually put in phrases because it worked better. Pastoral is a nice example. That really works nice if you have like a subject-specific database that focuses on agriculture because it's pastoral systems. But if you put this in a general database in like Scopus, it will pick up a lot of stuff from the religious literature because pastoral services, so it's used in a different context as well. So you have to see this is the master search actually was developed for CAP abstract and not for Scopus. And Scopus actually had this term taken out because it created so much noise in there. So it's something you have to explore. The other thing here is you have to know the syntax. So the near, that's a proximity operator. That sometimes you have to use that if there's a lot of, in this case, we found a lot of articles that we clearly talk about smallholders, but they don't mention it at all. So it doesn't show up. But we discovered that they're talking maybe about, like poor farmers or, poor producers, poor growers in this combination or resource limited. So it's often references to smallholder conditions or smallholder situations without using that term. So a proximity operator, you can spell out in what proximity two words have to show up. So in this case, we say it has to show up within 3 words. So, and actually near is for Web of Science and for CAP abstract. In Scopus, you actually have to use the W to make it work. So if you have an article that you use is poor within 3 words of farm, okay, I will pick this up. So okay, got this idea. So something worth trying. There's somewhere an error. Can you see it? Yeah, I think it's a second. So there's one bracket that we need for closing the second line. Right, and there's one for the whole concept. Okay, so it found 922,000 documents. So I can say something is wrong in here because it should not find that many. It should find something about 40,000. So, but I won't bother you with fixing that. So a couple of things you can do now is, first of all, you want to look at all the abstracts, and it takes a little bit because we have so many. And then it will have the terms, something is really off. We're not seeing it, but okay. So what I did actually, I will take a shortcut here. I just saved the searches because I anticipated something like this would happen. So here are my terms, and I should have used this one for some reason. Okay, how's that? 57,000. Okay. So now if we look at the terms, it will actually highlight them. So okay, so that's a way for you to check in which of the terms were picked up by the database. Okay. So pastoral, and it only highlights the exact terms. So it may pick up combinations that are not highlighted. So this is just the highlights. So it looks like everyone, like this one, you can kind of look at and see. Okay, so it picked it actually up in the keywords. Okay, in the keywords. Okay, so that's one way to look at these. The other thing you can do is you can save the search. Okay, so if you think this is a pretty good search or a pretty good start, you can save this and give it a name. And then next time you come in, you log in, you can retrieve that search and continue from that one. You can also save iterations of this search. So if you're starting exploring individual keywords in there, you can build like a line of searches and save all of them just to see what happens from what, if you take one term in and you take one term out, what happens to that one. So that's good way of calling this. Set alert, that's really something, if this is a topic like a thesis or dissertation, you want to set an alert to make sure that whenever a new article comes in meeting the search criteria, you will get an email, or you can set this up as feed. So you're always up to date with your topic. So that's really useful. And then, so Scopus gives you a lot of things to do. So I like the search results. So that gives you an overview about the 75,000 that we just searched. So so it looks like there was not really a whole lot going on before like the 1980s, and then the list really picked up from there on.
How is there 6 published in 2020?
What?
How is that possible? It says there's 6 published in 2020.
So yes, so sometimes they assign articles an issue that has not been published yet, so that could be one option. Okay. And sometimes they just say it's a 2020 when it's not. Okay. So you often see this. Like with books, it keeps books like longer term, so you can actually go, you pick a new book and actually say 2020, although we're still in 2019, which is cool. Marketing ploy, I guess. So yeah, but if it's an article, it might be assigned to an issue that's coming out next year, and they already know this. I think what the journal article is will really change, because this whole concept that we have issues and volumes, it doesn't really make a lot of sense in a digital world. So you can look for authors, right, and kind of understanding who might be prolific, and you can in this database you can just this author published 162. You can just book this profile, and here's the author, looks from Wageningen University in the Netherlands, and you see all the version published 382. Since it was so prolific on smallholders, most likely there's a lot more literature on that, just by looking at these authors. So that's a way of finding additional literature. Okay, so Scopus. So you have this little video. I think I will cut this out here. So one thing, if you do this smallholder search, so we have these 3 concepts, you can actually do the searches here. So you can just say combine search 29 and 30 and 31 with an AND operator, right? So you don't have to go and recreate the whole search in the search box, which takes a lot of time. You can just do this here and then edit the search here. You can go here and edit the search and take a term out, add a term, see what happens, but you work out of this, that you combine these terms. So, okay. So that's another reason why this worksheet has this different concepts spelled out, so that you can keep this concept separated as long as possible and see what happens. Okay,